I'm muted. There we go.
There you go.
What's going on, David?
Hey, man. Your Spartan League shirt's looking pretty good there.
Thank you, man. Wearing it. Proud. I got the Spartan League mug here with some coffee in it to make sure I am well caffeinated for tonight's discussion and topic. We got some really cool stuff that we're talking about tonight. Tell us a little bit about your situation and where you're at, David.
I've been going hard all day, all week, thing after thing. I'm in Maui right now. So been working, recording, and doing meetings and all the other stuff that we do all the time, and haven't been able to get very much sun yet. But the plan is to go to the gym after this thing and finally lift some weights and maybe get caught up on some emails and talk about what is likely ahead for the future of real estate. Very interesting times we're in right now.
Very interesting time. And we've had some landfall decisions and just big things happening in the lawsuit industry, right? In the real estate industry, but also in the economy too. We've been seeing a lot of ups and downs, a lot of changes to the Fed, the Reserve, mortgage rates going up. I mean, just so much happening. Tonight specifically, we're going to be targeting and focusing on what happened within the National Association of Realtors, the big lawsuit that happened and really kind of has shifted the way, or is going to shift the way, that real estate transactions are being handled from here on out. So I know in our brokerage, we've seen a lot of changes already, just small things starting to come, but a lot of brokers out there are saying be prepared for some major shifts in the next year. So before we jump into that, David, anything specific you wanted to start off with?
Jesus, man. This is, I mean, just when we thought the market couldn't get any crazier, it just seems like crazy times. I mean, we had rates that skyrocketed seemingly out of nowhere. Then we had layoffs that we started seeing. And I really can't point to any specific data on that because I know, I mean, my opinion here, this is just my opinion, is that the government fudges the numbers. It's probably a nice way to say it when it comes to unemployment data and inflation. And it's probably worse than what they're telling us. So I've been seeing a lot of people getting laid off. I've been seeing people losing their jobs. I think we're going to see more of it. Then we saw the price of food and electricity and gas and everything else just skyrocketing, man. I'm in Maui. I was here with you earlier this year, right, Kyle?
May.
Together. Was
it
May? That was like 6 months ago. Bro,
yeah.
You remember what poke cost at the ABC store when we were here?
It was like, what, 10, 12 bucks a pound or something like that?
Yes, that's what I remembered. I was thinking of it like $11 a pound. It's $26 a pound right now. Okay? Let me show you. They have these chips that I've fallen in love with.
Okay, now we're really going to get some cool behind the scenes here.
Has anyone ever seen these things? Like, I don't know. It's a stupid turtle. Not something that I've seen before. I don't know why they're so damn good, but like I get these whenever I'm in Maui, and I love them. They were like $3 a bag. You could get them on sale for less, right? Now, $6.50 for a stupid bag of air with some chips in it. So, like, it's crazy how things are becoming expensive. It's like there's no getting away from this. Raising rates like they have has not stopped inflation on food. It's at the point where, like, you just can't eat these chips. It needs to be like, I mean, maybe that's how I'll get skinny finally. I'll be like you, right? Like, it just costs too much money to eat. Oh, it's funny. People in the chats have heard of these chips before. I didn't know about them. I only see them whenever I come to Maui. Apparently, these things have a following. So, where was I going with this whole thing? Oh, what's going on with the market? Yeah. After all of this, we're seeing houses that aren't being sold, less deals getting done. Now we've got this ruling that a jury has determined that realtors have been inflating to keep price or commissions high. So we have some articles. We're going to go over with that today. I would love if you guys in the chat would give me your honest opinion on if you think realtors do collude to keep prices high, why you think that, and we're going to have an honest discussion tonight about if that's the case, and more importantly, what to expect in the future for buying real estate, because it probably isn't going to be the same after this.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to actually play a video here to lay out the foundation and the framework. And by the way, if you guys are responding to David in the chat regarding that, if realtors collude together, don't just answer with yes or no, right? Give your rationale and your reason why. That way we can actually create a conversation about this. So for those of you who maybe don't know the news that we're talking about, basically last week there was a landmark decision where a Missouri jury found the National Association of Realtors, Keller Williams, and Home Services America culpable of conspiring to set commission rates, which was a violation alleged by a group of Missouri home sellers. Basically, they were found culpable and now have to pay out nearly $2 billion in damages to the home sellers in Missouri, about $1.78 billion. And so there's some major stuff that came from this. And so what I'm going to do first is I'm actually going to put up a video that kind of explains it all in one fell swoop for everybody to see, and then we'll come back here and chat a little bit more about what that means and hear what David's thoughts are on that. So
very nice use of the phrase "fell swoop," by the way, Kyle.
Yes, I use the word fell swoop and culpable. That's pretty good for me. I'll take that.
Really good.
All right, here we go.
Class action ruling that could change the way Americans buy and sell homes.
Volume up a little bit, Kyle.
In Missouri on Tuesday found that the National Association of Realtors liable for artificially inflating commissions and awarded plaintiffs $1.8 billion in damages. CBS's Carter Evans takes a look at what it means for the average consumer.
I think that this is going to drastically lower what commission rates are.
Jared Bright's long legal battle with the real estate industry began when he sold his St. Louis home back in 2017.
Certainly, I didn't understand why I was paying for someone who I'd never met, will never meet, and wasn't doing anything for me.
Here's how it works under the current system. For a $500,000 home, the seller agrees to pay a commission, typically 5 to 6% of the home's selling price. That is then split between the seller's agent and the buyer's agent. Sellers have to pay the commission in order to have their home included on the multiple listing service, or MLS, a vast property database that feeds into popular sites like Zillow.
It doesn't sound like that radical of a concept. You pay for the person who's working for you.
Bright's attorney, Michael Ketchmark, brought the class action lawsuit against the National Association of Realtors and some of the largest real estate brokers in the country.
What we proved was the National Association of Realtors has joined in a conspiracy with the two of the largest corporate real estate brokers to use the system to fix prices.
The court determined the current commission model makes it difficult for sellers and buyers to negotiate lower fees at a time when technology makes it easy for anyone to access real estate listings online. The National Association of Realtors plans to appeal the verdict and says its rules serve in the best interests of consumers.
It's scary and it's daunting, and so we'll see. It's a big shakeup.
LA realtor Pamela Rich says a shift in fees could put homes out of reach for some. Who could this impact the most?
I think the buyers. Although the seller may have some financial relief, the buyer is now the one that's going to absorb the cost for the buyer's fees. That's a huge shift in the industry.
Now, it's unclear if banks will allow buyers to fold those fees into their mortgage loans. Of course, that comes at a time when interest rates are extremely high. Similar class action lawsuits are in the works across the country. Nora?
Such a big story, Carter Evans.
All right, so we're back. So David, initial thoughts and takeaways just from the video.
I hate when you hear information like this where they say what happened, but they don't tell you the logic behind it. Like, do you notice that a lot of the times when stories are reported, when we first heard about this, we were all frantically searching to try to understand it. Because the way it was originally reported to us was that the home sellers didn't realize half of their commission was going to the buyer's agent. That's how it was being taught to us realtors. Like, hey, there's this lawsuit going on because sellers are pissed that they've been paying the buyer's agent commissions this whole time. And we were like, no one doesn't know that. It's not like we're hiding this. It's on a form that says the total commission is this, the buyer's agent percentage is that. So this was all pretty much like open out there in the world information. It turns out that's probably not the case. It wasn't that they didn't know it. I think that, and it's still, we're trying to find information to find out what the actual logic was here. My understanding so far is that realtors if you want to put your house in the MLS, you have to pay a buyer's agent something. It can be $1 or a penny maybe, but it had to be something. And our understanding of this was that if Kyle's got a listing and he puts it on in the MLS, it automatically populates to Zillow, Redfin, Realtor, all the places that you guys go look at homes. Okay. Now, one of you comes to me and says, David, I want to buy that house. Take me to go see it. And I go show you the home. And you like the house. And then you call Kyle and say, hey, Kyle, I see you're listing the home. I want my offer to be accepted. If you take my offer, you don't have to pay a buyer's agent commission.
Right.
So then it gives that person a competitive advantage in the negotiations against all the people who have their agent representing them. So this rule was put in place both to protect the buyer's agent, which in this case was me, so that they can't cut me out of the deal once they see the house, right? And to protect the other buyers who have agents, so that you don't get an advantage if you say, well, my agent doesn't have to get paid, so can I get the deal? I don't understand the logic of how this was unscrupulous. I don't quite understand the argument that there was a collusion to keep commissions high. Because what we've seen is this intense pressure to lower commissions. You got really bad agents. You have people that don't want to pay commissions. So when the market gets hot, people say, I don't want to pay 6%, I'll pay 5%. I don't want to pay 5%, I'll pay 4%. I don't want to pay 4%, I'll pay 3%. I don't ever see anybody that's like getting the 6% unless they're a stud. Is that a different understanding, Kyle, than yours?
No, I think that's a pretty accurate understanding. We're going to unpack it a little bit more as we move forward, but I'm seeing actually a lot of really good points in the comments, and I'm liking the people going back and forth and conversing with one another. But I think the biggest thing is the plaintiffs alleged that, hey, it should not be up to the seller to have to pay the commission for the buyer's agent. The buyer should have to pay for the commission for their buyer's agent. They should be paying for that, not the seller. Things are flip-flopped. And you'll kind of hear in the next video that we go after, one of the things they say is like, what about the people who buy and then they never sell again? Or people that inherit a house and then have to sell it? Why should they have to pay for the buyer's agent commission? Because they never, because a lot of people will say, well, when a buyer buys a property, they're getting it for free. But what if you inherited the property? You didn't really buy it and get, not have to pay a commission. So there's a little bit of wishy-washiness in what I'm seeing, but no one actually sits down and dives into the details. I think the only people that did that was the jury. Interestingly enough, the jury really only deliberated on this thing for like an hour or two. So from what I heard, they made their decision pretty quickly when it came to deliberations.
Very quickly. It was like a record how quickly that came out.
And not to mention the reason why this is going to be such a big issue is because after that verdict was ruled, Michael Ketchmark, the lead attorney for the plaintiffs, immediately filed a new nationwide lawsuit immediately, right? Basically, this time targeting NAR again, but other brokerage firms like I think EXP was one of them, United Real Estate, Weishert, all these other kind of smaller boutique ones. So they're going after every brokerage now to make a statement, not only in Missouri, but nationwide.
You got another video for us?
Let's do it.
Sweet.
You guys will get a kick out of this one.
What do you guys think about Kyle's background? Let me know in the comments. Like it.
Curious.
Cool.
Thank you. You guys will get a kick out of this video. It's like CNBC's doing this, and they've got the head attorney for the plaintiff, right, coming in, Michael Ketchmark, to speak. And who did they go out to find? The best person to maybe defend real estate commissions, not David Green, not some top producing agent out there who has. They got the guy from Selling Sunset. So this is kind of funny. We'll see how it goes.
What you might pay for a home or pay to sell yours. Joining us now is Josh Flagg, Douglas Elliman real estate agent, star of Bravo's $1 Million Listing Los Angeles, and Michael Ketchmark, one of the lead attorneys at the class action lawsuit representing 500,000 homeowners in Missouri, also a trial attorney with Ketchmark and McCright PC. I'm going to start with you, Michael. What is the basis, in non-legalese, please, the basis of your lawsuit in Missouri?
Sure. The National Association of Realtors and these large corporate real estate companies have a rule that says if you want to list your house and have it on the internet through the MLS, and be able to have people find access to it. As a seller of a home, as a homeowner, you have to agree to make an offer of compensation to the buyer's agent. And that's the only way you can list it. They have a stranglehold on the data. It's one of the only
okay,
countries.
Michael. Sorry, what would that mean? So right now, a lot of people think that the seller is paying both commissions. So really, even the buyer's agent sort of represents the seller in a legal way because you got to follow the money. So
that's not right.
Under your model, how would it look?
The buyer's agent doesn't represent the seller. The buyer's agent represents the buyer. They're the one who's coming in and telling somebody their house costs too much money. They need a new air conditioner. The roof's bad. Their duty of loyalty is to the buyer. It's the seller who's paying them. This is the only area, the only place in our country where you're paying somebody else's salary. Look, I'm a huge Kansas City Chiefs fan. The town of Patrick Mahomes. When a team like Denver Broncos come in, what we don't do is we don't pay for their coach. There's no reason that home sellers should be forced to pay a buyer's agent. It doesn't happen around the world. The only reason it's happening here is because the National Association of Realtors and these corporate real estate companies are following and enforcing this rule. And it's not right. It's against the law.
Well, I don't know if it's against the law, Josh Flagg. I mean, and my point is basically he can argue, if the seller's paying both commissions, then we can argue who the agents really work for. You're on the real estate side. What's your take on these lawsuits? Because for 20 years, they've been trying to sort of break this structure.
Well, here's the thing. You have to look at it this way. Yes, the seller's paying both the buyer and the seller's commission, selling agent's commission. There's no doubt. But when you're going to buy a house, you're also not. It's reversed. You get a free ride one time, and then the other time you get to pay. So when that person bought the house, he didn't pay any commissions. So when he's selling it, then
Josh, you're kind of popping in and out. So, we're going to try to reset your feed. Michael, you're there. I think you heard Josh's arguments that if our audience missed it, I'll repeat it, which is basically, and he makes a good point. If I buy a house, I don't pay anything, I get it. The seller pays both commissions, but then at some point I will sell that house and then I will pay. So why not? It's sort of just a delayed payment system.
Yeah, I heard that argument made in court today, and what the National Association of Realtors and these corporate real estate companies are saying. All right, we may be ripping off sellers when they're selling the house.
That's a terrible argument right off the bat. Like, it's funny you said that. They should have brought me in there to argue. You just sound like you're wrong. If your argument is, yeah, it's not right, but hey, it happens to everybody. Like, oh, that car ran me over and I think I should sue him. Well, at one point you might be driving a car and you might run someone else. Like, I can't stand that argument. I've never looked at it like that, okay? Here's a much better argument. What's going to get the seller the most money? They're going to pay a buyer's agent commission for bringing a buyer. That's how I've always looked at it. There's a commission. Let's assume it's 6%. They're going to give half of that to their agent to market the home and represent their interests. Then they're going to dangle a carrot for all of the buyer's agents to bring their clients to that house. The more people that go look at the house, the more offers you're going to get, the more money you're going to make. So the first question should be, does paying 2.5%, 3% commission, whatever it is, on the house, let's say it's a $500,000 house, let's say it's a 3% commission, which we never get anymore, but let's say it was, okay? 15 grand on a $500,000 house. Right off the bat, if my agent has to double end it, you actually could probably say, I'll give $1 to the buyer's agent and I'll give 3% to my agent if you want it. Nobody did that, okay? So do we think maybe the reason that nobody chose that was because they recognized that the buyer's agents aren't going to bring their clients to look at your house? If you're not paying them and they're getting $1 or they're getting nothing, they're going to tell their clients to look at a different house. Or if the client wants to buy your house, they don't want your agent negotiating for them. You already know that person. They're representing you. That's the lawyer on the other side. Like, who here is going through a divorce and wants their spouse's lawyer to be negotiating for them? That's the most insane idea that there is, right? So first off, if you say we're not paying a buyer's agent, which you have the right to do, less people go look at your house, you get less offers. You are likely to get, when you do get offers, they're not going to be as high. That's the first thing to think about. Here's the other thing. Will people buy houses if they don't have representation? If you're like, well, we're not paying for a buyer's agent, how many people out there that, not us, that we talk about real estate all the time, a regular person is going to say, yeah, I'm going to go buy a house having no idea how it works, with nobody that's on my side, knowing I'm going to get ripped off? Like, is that the world that we want, where you go to buy a house and the other side has an agent and you don't, and they just hammer you? Now, there's a completely separate argument to make that most real estate agents are bad. I say that more than everyone, okay? So this is not me defending agents that are bad. This is just the system where it's in the best interest for the seller to pay a buyer's agent to bring the buyers to the house and to convince that client to stay in the deal when they get scared and they get cold feet and they want to get out of it. That is a million times better argument for why sellers should be paying buyer's agent commissions than, well, I mean, at some point you're going to have to be on the other side. So it's like, that just makes me sick that that's the best that we thought of as realtors in this argument, was that, yeah, it's unfair, but it's going to be unfair to both sides, as opposed to just acknowledging, like, I guess what I'm trying to say, Kyle, is this entire time you haven't had to pay a buyer's agent. You could pay them 1%, you could pay them 0.5%, you could pay them $1. You don't have to actually pay them real money. You just need some kind of compensation. And yet nobody chose to do it that way, because all the sellers recognize, I'm going to get way more money if I get more people buying my house and I create a bidding war. And if I want that, the buyers have to be comfortable doing a really scary thing. And if I want them to be comfortable, let me pay for them to have a lawyer so that they don't back out and get scared. That straight up, that makes way more sense than what we've got. So I'll let you jump back into it, but I just wanted to acknowledge that, like, realtors, this was like realtor incompetence much more than it was a system that's unfair.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think realtors have not done a great job of giving the profession a good name, and as a result, they get thrown under the bus because of these kinds of things. Let me ask you really quick. Oh, go ahead.
I have a point before you ask it. Don't forget what you're going to say.
Okay.
The other thing is that buyers don't have a ton of money, okay? They're fronting the down payment. Sellers aren't helping them with the down payment so that they can pay more for the house. The buyers are having to pay a lot of closing costs. Usually the title and escrow fees, or at least a big chunk of them, are paid from the buyers. Then the buyers have to fix up all the stuff that they want done to the house when they go buy the house. Then the buyers have to pay for a home inspection and a pest inspection and all these things that sellers never want to pay for, right? When you and I take listings, we have our sellers pay for that so that buyers can't negotiate against us later. But most agents are too stupid to have their clients do it. So buyers are forking out all this money. If they have to then go pay for their own agent on top of it, they're probably just not going to do it. So what happens is you get less people interested in the house. But what happens in practical terms is that because the buyers don't have to pay for their own buyer's agent, they end up borrowing the majority of the money that they're going to put into the deal. They borrow 80% of the down payment, or 95% of the down payment if they're only putting 5% down. And really, they try to come out of pocket with as little as possible. So they're going to pay for the home inspection and the pest inspection. The closing costs can even be wrapped into the deal sometimes, depending on if the lender lets them. So you got a down payment and some closing costs. Well, they end up ultimately paying more for the house. There's no doubt about that. The seller gets more money because the buyer is financing the money from a bank. The bank puts more money in the deal. The seller gets more money out of the deal. The buyer pays more than they normally would, but less of that money comes out of pocket. So everyone kind of has something that works out for them. Did the buyer pay more? Yes. The buyers could be just as pissed off about this because they're like, we're overpaying on houses, but it's worth it because that's less money out of pocket. Does the seller pay the commission? Yes, but they make more money because they did it this way, and they get more money for their house. Like, it sells for more than it would have, right? Now you have all these people that are representing you. You have title officers, escrow officers, a bunch of people that are involved in the transaction to keep it safe, who are getting paid from money from the seller, but that money came from the buyer who got it from the lender. Mm-hmm. You see what I'm saying? Like, if lenders complained about all of this, there would have been more merit to that argument than the sellers who sold the house claiming they got ripped off. That's the point I wanted to make.
Yeah, that's a really good point. The question I was going to ask was, what's your response to this whole gatekeeper argument, right? Where they're basically saying a seller cannot list their property on the MLS, which the realtors have control of. And in order to list on the MLS, they have to basically agree to pay the buyer's agent commission. In my experience, I've never seen that as an issue. I've never, like you said, I've never seen where you can't list it unless you have a buyer's agent receiving a certain commission. I've actually seen it the opposite.
I think National Association of Realtors had a rule that if you put it in the MLS,
Mm-hmm.
there has to be some compensation to a buyer's agent, even if it's $1.
Okay, so that's what it is.
What they're basing the argument off of. That like, well, you're making me pay a buyer's agent. They just didn't mention to anyone that it could be as little as $1.
Or that it's negotiable, and that's the issue. What they're saying is it wasn't transparent enough.
I think their argument is that realtors fight to keep it high. Like we're on this little thing between each other to keep commissions high. And there's more to talk about this. I'll get into the fact that no one's even asking the question of how much they use a realtor and never pay for them. So there's a big argument to be made. Like when I'll get into that. Just remind me to tell you about how ambulances work.
Okay.
And I'll explain how that relates to the real estate thing if you want to keep going.
Let's do it.
Made in court today, and what the National Association of Realtors and these corporate real estate companies are saying, look, all right, we may be ripping off sellers when they're selling the house, but they're benefiting when they're ripping off other sellers if they're buyers.
Why are they ripping them off? Go into a little bit more the ripping off comment.
Sure. As a seller of a home, you should not be forced to pay a buyer's agent. And the fact that some of those people turn around and buy a house and make another seller pay for that, that doesn't make it right. Two rights don't make it wrong. But you know who's paid every single time? The National Association of Realtors members. They're making commission on both sides of it. And the reason they're doing it is half the time these corporate real estate companies represent buyers and half the time they represent sellers. But also the thing that's not true about that, a lot of our clients are people who didn't turn out to sell a home and become a buyer. What about the couples who retire and don't buy another house? What about the people who pass away and they want to sell their home and leave it to the next generation? You shouldn't be picking their pockets.
Yeah,
and they haven't given
still wait. We're supposed to have Josh kind of be on the other side. We're still kind of waiting to patch him in again. So it's just going to be kind of. I'll play the role of Josh, although please do. a less real estate-y Josh from my perspective, Michael, which is this. So don't you worry. Right now, you got high interest rates, number of homes available for sale, low. A lot of realtors are really struggling. Okay, and I think that if you say to a buyer, well, on top of buying the home, you're going to have to pay 20 grand for the right or the privilege to purchase that home. You're going to just further take the housing market out behind the woodshed.
No, not at all. Because look, what ends up happening is a lot of buyers now are finding their homes on the internet, and the National Association of Realtors know that they're finding it on the internet. They're locating all of that. And I'm not against buyer's agents.
Yeah.
Just don't force the sellers to pay it. Plus, there's all kinds of government programs. There's abilities for people who are cash strapped to get government loans to pay for this. It doesn't have to come from the seller. Let the free market work.
All right.
Again, you know what a straw man argument is, Kyle? Have you heard that phrase?
I remember learning about that in high school, but can you remind us for the people that don't know, including myself?
It's like it's a debate tactic where I create an argument that you never said and then defeat that argument as if I'm defeating you. So the idea is I set up a straw man that can't fight back, and then I attack the straw man, okay? So like, let's say that you and me are disagreeing, and I say, Kyle, I just think it's ridiculous that you think that you should be able to talk for the entire YouTube video when really it's my YouTube channel. Furthermore, I don't think that you should be controlling the mic and that you should get 80% of the airtime like you think that you should have, because that's unfair. But you never said any of those things.
Yeah.
Right? So the person listening, they're like, oh, wow, that doesn't seem fair. Kyle's a bad guy. Why would he take over David's channel? But you never actually said that. That's a straw man argument, okay? He's proving superior logic, the lawyer here, over something that's a terrible argument in the first place that never should have even been brought up. The conversation should be, if the seller is paying the commission, A, did they know that they were paying the buyer's agent commission? B, did they willfully agree to it, or were they strong-armed? And then C, was it in their best interest? A, they did know. B, I don't think they've proven here that they were strong-armed. And C, it's definitely in their best interest. So I wish that Josh would have gone out there and said, here's why lawyers like this want to get rid of the buyer's agent commission being paid by the seller. Because certain people like David Green and this lawyer and experienced real estate investors don't really need a buyer's agent. They know how this thing works up and down. We have an entire world full of wholesalers, full of off-market deal finders. I've been saying for years, a big reason why you don't see as much inventory in the MLS is because it gets sucked up before it gets there. And then I'm not saying these people are bad. They're doing the work of getting the deals. There's an argument to be made that they deserve it. But what I'm saying is it doesn't go in front of the public. You never know that house was for sale. That young couple that just got married and just wants to find a house to raise their babies in never sees that house because the real estate investor with 70 homes buys it before it gets anywhere, because they got a budget of $100,000 a month to send on direct mail that they can go out there and they make their living like this. Okay. I'm one of those people. I mean, I don't do direct mail, but I am a full-time real estate investor guy. I would benefit to get rid of my competition. There was less people to buy homes. I could go in there with a bunch of cash and bully people around. So this is not me sitting here saying agents deserve more because we're agents. Like, agents suck. Most agents are terrible. They don't deserve what they're getting. People don't know who's a good agent, who's a bad agent. I really understand this argument, and I've written books to help agents be better because it's so bad. But it just doesn't change the fact that this ruling, if sellers no longer are going to pay buyer's agent commissions, that just means people that don't know how real estate works won't be able to buy houses. You're going to go in there with no representation or paying for your own. So who are you going to get that's really good that you're going to pay $500 to? And you're going to compete with me, who's bought hundreds of homes and represented hundreds and hundreds of people that were right. Like, it takes power out of the everyday person, and they keep making this argument that greedy sellers are ripping people off that they never proved it. Like, just listening to the argument is making my blood boil.
I can tell, man, you're fired up over there in the lava area of Hawaii. And yeah, that's a good point. I think we should talk a little bit about kind of moving away from the arguments that were made either on camera or in court. And I was kind of giving Josh a hard time there because, really, he didn't really get a chance to defend himself because of his connection. So we were left with a CNBC anchor to do that. But let's talk about, it's been what's happened, right, with the ruling. NAR is obviously going to be appealing this. Things are going to be pushed out probably a year or two. We're going to start to see changes trickle in, I'm sure, from brokerages, because they're probably wanting to preemptively, protect themselves against any further litigation and liability. So we're going to start seeing changes regardless of what happens with an appeal in the next year or two. But what are some impacts that you can see this having specifically on buyers, right? And whether this be first-time home buyers or investors, where do you see this going, if not in the near future, at least down the road?
Well, we all hope that the system we have in place will be made better, but not completely replaced, right? Mm-hmm. If they had brought me in to interview and give my opinion on this case, what I would have said is that it makes all the logical sense in the world for the seller to pay the buyer's agent commission, because the buyer themselves doesn't have enough money left over to do this. Housing is already expensive. Yeah. Rent is expensive. There's a lot of costs associated with title changing hands because there's so many things that have to be done right. You have to bring in professional home inspectors and pest inspectors. The title has to be checked to make sure that it's clean. Escrow services have to be provided, where a lot of math has to be mathed. It's like there's a lot of stuff that has to go into this whole thing. If you make buyers pay for all that, only rich people will be able to buy homes. My argument would have been, let's increase the standard that we expect on realtors. Let's get rid of the backwash that has taken over the industry. No longer do you just pass the state test and take a couple courses. I would say you need a 4-year degree. You need some kind of a legal degree to be a real estate agent. I would say agents are going to have to be basically a lawyer. They go to school for 4 years, and part of that education would involve learning construction, learning contract law, learning negotiation, learning how to articulate things to clients. We should just have better realtors and less of them. That's what I think should have happened, right? Like, what I think a lot of people get excited about this because they're like, yeah, realtors suck. That's what they get. I had a bad experience with a realtor.
Yeah.
But you don't actually want to get rid of the sellers paying the commissions. We still want someone else to pay the buyers, so we don't have to pay. And here, you asked me, Kyle, what I'm afraid it could turn into. A, only rich people buy houses. And B, and this part sucks too, when the buyer's agents are no longer getting compensated by the seller's agents, and they're no longer getting a 2.5% or 3% commission, they're not going to make enough money to keep doing the job, which means they're going to start charging people by the hour like a lawyer does. So when you have a question about a house, about a lot, when you want to know what the law is, if the city permits something, when you don't understand what a soffit or a fascia is, when you don't get how an electrical issue works, or you want a referral to somebody that can help you with drywall, you used to just call your agent and they happily provided you with what you needed because they knew at some point they would be getting a commission from you when you wanted to buy or sell a house. Now it's going to become cutthroat. Oh, you want my referrals? Okay, it's $500 and I'll make a connection. It's $2,500 and I'll get you set up with a property manager. Oh, you want that information? I bill $100 an hour. How long do you want to talk on the phone? Minimum of 1 hour, whatever. It's going to all turn into lawyers. And the people with money can afford that. And the people without money can't. And it's very likely that the American dream of you build equity by buying a house and waiting just took a huge hit to the balls.
I agree. And I love what you're saying about the standards required in this industry, because to me, it is very surprising that all you need is to pass a test and take a few college level courses, like 3 courses. I don't know how it is in other states, but in California, just to get your license and represent people on multi-million-dollar transactions, the biggest purchases they'll probably ever make in their lifetime. And you compare that with things like cosmetology, right? Becoming a barber, like they probably have to, and like any kind of journeyman or trade type of thing, they have to go through hours of interning, hours of shadowing, hours of training and courses, or to be an auto mechanic, right? Just to be able to practice. And in real estate, you really don't have to do that. And as a result, I think the industry is getting hurt. And it probably during COVID, it was really exposed because we had so many people that flooded the industry, got their license, made a killing, but were not acting as fiduciaries. We're not acting in a professional manner. They weren't educating their clients the right way, right? And so they've always had a bad name, but I feel like it became even worse in the last couple of years.
Yeah, I agree. It's just frustrating to see the way this is being framed is not the way that you and I see it working in the industry all the time, right? We've been saying for years there's too many damn agents. We've made the David Green team to try to give people that follow us an option to have an agent that's honest and reputable and will shoot straight with people, right? Like we've done everything that we could to help people get free representation. But if this thing does change the nature of commissions, what you're going to find is that the professional wholesalers get an even bigger advantage over you. The professional home buyers get an even bigger advantage. BlackRock has trillions of dollars that they can go in there and or at least hundreds of billions of dollars, and they can just swoop it all up and they don't really care what they got because they can hold it for 25 years. Okay. The only thing stopping them was the individual buyer that had an agent that could go look at the specific house and decide they want it and get it before someone sells it to BlackRock. If that doesn't happen, you're taking the people that don't need agents and you're giving them a massive advantage when it's already really hard for buyers to be able to get a house.
Yeah. I got one more video to play here. This one is with it's actually a CNBC one as well. This is the same plaintiff. I'm sorry, the same lawyer for the plaintiff. And he comes in and basically calls NAR a cartel. So this will be a fun one to watch. And NAR actually has one of their representatives there to respond. So here we go.
What you pay for a home. Where do we go from here? Joining us now on set is Bess Friedman. She is the CEO of Brown Harris Stevens and a member of the National Association of Realtors, and Michael Ketchmark, the lead attorney of that lawsuit representing 500,000 homeowners in Missouri. Bess and Michael, thank you for joining us here. First to you, Michael, what is big settlement here? 1.8 or verdict, I should say, $1.8 billion. First up, where does that money go? Is money going to be kicked back to people who bought homes, or where?
Sure. I mean, we view it as a day of accountability. And I told the jury, this case is simple. It comes down to premises I learned when I was in kindergarten. If you take something that doesn't belong to you, you give it back. The money will be returned to the homeowners that were the victims of this rigged system. It's been going on in our country for about 100 years, and it stops today. And we're going to hold these corporate real estate companies and National Association of Realtors accountable for their conduct.
And I understand you are ready or have already filed more lawsuits.
Yeah, the day that the minute that verdict came in, we filed the lawsuit against the National Association of Realtors and these other large corporate real estate companies to bring the same relief nationwide. And we expect the damages in those cases to be in excess of $100 billion.
Pause it, Kyle.
Look, we are wasting right now.
I just had a thought. Let's say that you believe that you are being treated unfairly and you want to do something about it. You probably got to file a lawsuit, right?
Yep.
Can you just file a lawsuit without a legal degree or an understanding of the way that the legal system works, or do you need representation to do that?
I think you can in small claims court, but anything beyond that, you probably got to get an attorney. Yeah.
So would it not be fair to say that there's a bit of a gatekeeper to the legal system that the attorney would be?
I see where you're going with this, and yes, there is for sure.
So these attorneys that say that they're here to help and represent their clients, how much do you think they're getting paid out of this lawsuit?
Oh, they got to be getting 25-30% minimum, I would imagine.
And do you think that the people who are being awarded these damages want to pay that money to the attorney, or do you think that they're being forced to pay it?
Oh no, they're basically, they have to pay what the attorneys are saying they have to pay.
Yeah.
I doubt they're negotiating it.
Correct. Can you do it? Can you do it on your own without an attorney? Yes. Can you buy a house without an agent? Yes. But the point is, you're a gatekeeper because you're the one that has the information, and the agents are making sure that they get paid. How is that anything different than the attorneys in these cases that go put together these class action lawsuits and say, this isn't right that you're having to pay representation, right? Like, and then the people who are supposed to be getting this money have to pay. It's just a thing to think about here from the person who's claiming that the system is rigged. I imagine that this lawyer made out pretty good. I would be curious if we could Google and find out how much money he got paid out of the 1.8 billion that's going to be coming into these home sellers.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I'd be curious what the level of transparency they have with the plaintiffs when they do this, right? Are they actually disclosing this to everyone, right? Are they disclosing how much the lawyers are getting? Is that publicly displayed anywhere? We know real estate agent commissions, buyer agent commissions are displayed everywhere.
Right there on the contract, right?
Yeah.
Was the jury told if we give this award, this is how much the attorneys are going to get?
Yep. And it's publicly displayed on every MLS for buyers agents, right? Why aren't we seeing this for these guys? For sure.
Yeah. If anyone here knows anyone at CNBC or Fox or CNN for that matter, I would love to go on there and bring up the things that nobody asked that they should have asked. So yeah, keep that in mind. I also love Nature Boy here said that there was a car change its commission rule that allows brokers to offer buyers brokers 0% in compensation. That was probably after this lawsuit was put in place. They were like, hey, fine, we'll get rid of it. It's no longer $1. You can get away with offering 0. And that sounds good. Like, oh, great, I don't have to pay a buyer's agent. You're just not thinking it through. You're assuming that all the buyers are going to come to buy your house and you're not going to have to pay their agents anymore. No, now they have to pay their own agents, which means they're not going to go buy your house. That's the unfortunate effect of this. And we've got this guy sitting up here like he's a superhero, disrupting the industry and changing it all, when they could have just fixed all of this by saying, let's make it harder to be an agent, right? I mean, in general, isn't that the solution for everything in capitalism? We don't like cops. We got a bunch of bad cops. Okay. Well, instead of defunding them, why don't we pay them more and make it harder to be a cop? We don't like all these fat cops that can't do anything. Okay. Well, then why don't we pay them more and make it so they have to pass a physical fitness exam every single year? Because instead what they're doing is saying, let's just treat cops terribly. So then everyone who would have been a good cop is like, I don't want to do that job. And you're left with the people that suck. That's what happens when you just say, we're going to cut whatever someone's getting and not do something that makes more sense.
Yeah, incentivize people to produce and perform, not the opposite, right?
That's it. All right, you can keep going.
About $50 billion a year in wealth that's being taken out of the pockets of homeowners and transferred over to these corporate machines that have taken over real estate, and it's got to stop. The National Association of Realtors takes in almost $250 million in fees from local real estate agents because they have a stranglehold on the market. And
that's okay, Michael. But Bess, that's the NA. He's talking about the NAR, National Association of Realtors, which you are a member.
Yep.
But are you a corporate machine?
No, we are not. And I can't comment on the lawsuit because it was in Missouri, so I'm not going to talk about that. But what I can say is that the majority of all real estate transactions are done with two agents, a buyer's agent and a seller's agent. And what is being said, I think, is completely untrue. It takes away from the fact that the buyer's agent adds incredible value to the transaction. And so I think the narrative out there, the Wall Street Journal had an article where they referred to NAR as a cartel. It's ridiculous. And I think there's hardworking agents who are out there representing buyers every day. And this totally takes away from that. And I think it's unfortunate. It's the wrong narrative because we work together. It's cooperation. You get the best price when everybody works together.
And I'm sure, Bess, that there's people that obviously you're selling a home, you'd like to pay as little as.
Would you have said it that way?
No, you know exactly where I'm going.
I know.
Terrible argument.
Yeah.
This is probably why we lost. If this was what realtors had up there defending what they do, Jesus, like we all work together. There's no specifics. It's just like, well, we do add a lot of value. Who even knows what value means anymore when we just throw that stuff around? Like, give specific examples. Right? I heard somebody up here make a comment in the comments that I really liked. Let me see if I can.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny when you're being accused of colluding and then your response is, well, we are all working together. Well, that's kind of what colluding is. So don't say that.
That's exactly right. Like it's driving me nuts. It's like the worst job explaining to the people listening what's going on. I can't find the comment. It was something I wanted to give an example of like a better way to address things. Okay. The thing is, if you agree to a percentage to the realtor, if the buyer brings his own realtor to the deal, they split the commission. How does that, I think they meant help the seller. However, they split the commission. Okay. You could say to your listing agent, I will pay you 3% or 2% or 7% or whatever you want. And then I will pay the buyer's agent this percent, right? And then the listing agent could go find you a buyer on their own. That's the way it used to work. You pay me a percentage. I go find you a buyer for your house. I bring them to you and you pay me, okay? What we figured out was that instead of having one human being trying to find a buyer for your house, you could put it in the MLS, which would be like thousands of human beings, tens of thousands of human beings would see the house. They don't trust your agent. They trust their agent. That's a normal thing. They don't want to trust your agent who you trust. That person could rip them off. So they get someone that they do trust. Then your agent takes a percentage of his commission and gives it to the other person because they brought the deal for you. That's what's happening. Why did no one explain that? They could have just said, yeah, sellers don't have to pay a buyer's agent. They have the option of not letting as many people see their house and having buyers freaked out about buying it at all. And they can just get lower offers from less people and save on the commission, but lose money on the house. Like that would have been a much more, yeah, you see what I'm saying, Kyle. It's driving me nuts that people are on TV and this is who are marching out there.
I love this. This is great.
You could. I mean, everybody wants to pay as little as they can for everything across whatever the asset class is.
That's
for
right.
most people, including myself, I will never buy anything more expensive than my home. This is the most important and complex financial
That's right.
transaction that most of us will
100%.
ever go
The
through.
host
Right.
of the
And
show
that's
has
why,
to make the
you know,
argument.
you have
Yes,
someone, if
Brian.
you're selling your home, you hire someone to represent you. They're your fiduciary. And also buyers want somebody to represent them, to talk to them about the pros and the cons, the neighborhood, you know, their financing, everything. So you want to have two people, just like you would in a divorce. You want to have two people on the side of the transaction. It's the
Well, hopefully
same.
this is more of a marriage than a divorce, Baz.
But it can be a divorce, you know.
So Michael, is your beef with the NAR? Is it with the compensation structure? Do you think that, and we've talked before, that there shouldn't be a buyer's agent, or if they do, the buyer's agent should not be paid by the seller, because that may be the conflict, and maybe if you're a buyer, you actually pay your buyer's agent.
We got nothing against buyer's agents. I think they're awesome. But the person they should pay for is the person they're working for. What this member of the National Association of Realtors, she just gave away the case. She said you have competitors who are working together
They're colluding together to fix the prices at 6%. I mean, that's what's happening. That's what the jury heard 2 weeks of evidence of. We revealed the documents, we revealed the videotapes, we revealed all of the emails. And the CEO of the NAR testified at trial and took the stand, and we exposed him for what he is. It is a cartel. It's a cartel
that is not a cartel. I take offense at that. It is not a cartel.
I'm sure you do, and I take offense at the fact that
because
the NAR
listen, in Brooklyn for a long time there was no co-broking, and you know what that does? A disservice to the consumer. What you're saying is really offensive, and I take.
America or commissions.
It is not a cartel. I'm just telling you, it is not a cartel.
Can you answer this question for me?
Yes.
Why are the commissions in the United States 2 to 3 times higher than the rest of the industrial?
Listen, all commissions are negotiable. You can negotiate them at any time. There's nothing written in stone.
The jury heard videotape evidence that they negotiate from 6%, but they only go up.
Thank you, Mikhail, for that awesome comment, by the way.
Did you hear what he just said? Something about they negotiate from 6% commissions and they only go up.
Mm-hmm.
Kyle, when's the last time you saw anything higher than a total of 6%?
In California, I've never seen it.
In my career, I don't think I've seen it. Okay.
Yeah.
Unless I got it somehow because I was offering more than just selling the house. I was managing a rehab and like other stuff like that. When have you even seen agents regularly get 6%?
Never
happens. It's like, it's always less than that. And what's funny is it usually comes out of the buyer's agent side. So the listing agent takes the listing and says, I want 5%. And then they say, I'll give the buyer's agent 1.5% and I'll keep 3.5% for me. Now that's not fair to the buyer's agent, but there's nothing they can do because the house shows up on Zillow and Realtor and Redfin and Trulia and everywhere else. Right? So now the buyer's agent doesn't want to say, I don't want to take you to see that house because I'm not getting paid. They don't want to like hurt the relationship with their client. So they just get screwed and they don't get as much money. And the sellers and the listing agent gets to keep it. All this does, it does not put money in the hands of sellers. It puts power in the hands of listing agents. And this is what really chafes my butt here. Because in general, listing agents are the ones talking to the sellers, controlling the narrative, and they can just lie. Do you guys have any idea how many listing agents tell their clients, I'm the local neighborhood expert. I sell more houses in this neighborhood than anyone else. And everyone hears this and they go, well, that's the neighborhood expert. I do see their signs everywhere. Kyle, you've represented a lot of buyers that bought houses, right?
Yep.
How often was that listing from a neighborhood expert? I'm guessing pretty commonly.
Yes. Oh, yeah, for sure.
How often did that neighborhood expert's opinion on the neighborhood impact the buyer's decision to write an offer and close on the house?
My buyers have never cared who the listing agent was, who the listing brokerage was, or their knowledge of the neighborhood.
And they never will, because the listing agent should never be talking to the buyer. Okay.
Yep.
Yet listing agents can walk in there and convince sellers why they should go with them. Because they know the neighborhood and the seller doesn't understand how the transaction works. They have no clue. They just know what they're being told. And the only way that the buyer has a chance is if they have an agent that they can trust, because it is such an unscrupulous industry. It is so easy to rip people off. And before we just get mad at agents for doing that, no one's more mad at them than me. You just got to understand they might go 9 months without selling a house. They're just showing homes constantly and no one pays them. Okay, so of course they end up feeling pressured to say whatever has to be said to sell the house. I'm just gonna turn the guns against the people here that are saying like, oh, it's my agent didn't negotiate hard enough for me. Okay, I hear you. How many people do you think use agents to show them homes, talk to agents on the phone to ask questions, read literature that agents have written, attend meetups that agents have put together, and never paid the agents anything? Yeah, Kyle, you have a lot of conversations. Would you say you work more than 40 hours in a week?
Easily, yeah.
Okay. Of those more than 40 hours, what percentage of them do you think you're actually getting paid on?
I don't know the percentage, but probably 10% or less.
Yeah, I would think even less.
Yeah.
Right? Like, especially if you don't have a system where leads are being delivered to you and you got to go get your own leads.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably somewhere between 2 to 5% of the time.
Yeah.
Work you do as an agent turns into a paycheck. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
No one's talking about that. When we're like, yeah, sellers shouldn't have to pay a buyer's agent commission when they never had to in the first place. They could have elected not to if they wanted to. Who's going to help these buyers? All these people that talk to realtors to learn about real estate. Are they going to pay for that information on their own? Are they going to spend $30,000 in legal fees to gain the knowledge that you can get from an agent if you have the right one? Like, think about how much stuff we do, Kyle, me and you. These YouTube lives, the meetups that we put on, we do as much as we can for free. We do it for free because we're hoping that you guys would email us and say, hey, I want to buy a house and I want you to be my agent. When we're not getting paid for that anymore, do you think that this free content that agents put out is still going to be there? It'll be there in the next 6 months, okay? You're going to have agents that step up and say, I'm not going to stop. I'm going to bring value. And if I just bring enough value, you're going to come to me. It will not last. People will stop doing this when they're not going to get a commission for it. And a lot of the information that you've been getting for free, you will now have to start paying for. And that lawyer that you're listening to is not telling you that during these videos. Okay? Like, his clients are rich. He's representing the people that already own the assets. Those people are going to be fine. The people that are trying to get their foot in the door, the people that are trying to like establish themselves as a homeowner, it's going to be bad news for them.
Yeah, I mean, that, and think about it. It's going to change the interaction between buyer and buyer's agent, right? Right now, when a client or a lead comes to a buyer's agent, they start off their conversation by figuring out, is this buyer's agent going to be the best person to represent me and help me find a home? Can I trust this person that they know the market, they know the neighborhoods, they know how to negotiate and really take care of me and be a good fiduciary, right? Are they going to help me win the house of my dreams? Are they going to help me find the house of my dreams? Now, a lot of this interaction is going to be based off of how much do you charge, right? And almost getting off on the first foot of what does it cost, right? And I think buyers are now going to be potentially going with buyer's agents that are cheaper. The cheaper ones are probably not going to be very good agents. And so now you're going to get what you pay for as a buyer. And that can put people in a lot of sticky situations. So that's going to be really interesting to see how real estate agents, specifically buyer agents, how they sort of modify their business model and start to switch to clients working with them. So that'll be interesting.
So we promised that we would share with you guys. By the way, was there more of that video to watch? I know
that was it. That's it.
We promised we would talk with you about what to expect in the industry. Let me start painting some pictures for you guys. First off, the best talent in the buyer's agent pool will leave. The best people that are the best at their job, that help people buy houses and get over their fears and explain things and protect them and tell them what deals not to buy, they're gone. Not right away. In the future, they're done. That's something that you can expect. Okay. Nature Boys comment. Love you guys, but you need to stop focusing on the current system and compare it to other industries, countries, and what fair practice is in business. All right, let's start with other industries. Let's look at the commercial industry. I'm guessing most of you are probably not familiar with how that works. In the commercial industry, there are no buyer's agents. There are brokers that represent owners. They are the equivalent of a listing agent. You want to buy a house, you want to buy a property in the commercial space, you do not get representation. You get to work with the seller's agent. And if you have questions on what price to write, they don't tell you. In fact, that industry is known for lying. You go to any commercial conference, and they all make jokes about how the listing agents will always give you a trailing 12 that's better than what it was. They always give you a pro forma. Well, here's what it could be if you really did it, not here's what it is. They know how to fudge the numbers to make the property look like it performs way better. And all the good operators during due diligence, they're just trying to figure out, we know you're lying, where's the lie? Okay? It would be the same in this industry when you have a listing agent selling a house and there is no buyer's agent that's being paid or representing a buyer. And you say, well, tell me what's wrong with the house. Here are the disclosures. What does this mean? Read them. Well, I don't see anything on the disclosures that says there's something wrong with the house. And then you find out after it closed, the seller only has to disclose what they know is wrong with the house, and you have to prove that they knew about it. Well, good luck doing that. How are you going to prove what they actually knew? Very difficult. Or you say, hey, what kind of condition is the house in? The listing agent says it's in great shape. You should buy it. Should I get a home inspection? I don't see why you would need to. In fact, you don't even need an inspection contingency. That's for old homes. This one was built in the 90s. You're fine. What are you going to do? You're going to believe them because you don't know any better. That's how the commercial industry works. Nature boy. The commercial industry, because you don't have buyer's agents representing clients, there's no one educating you folks that are listening to this on how to buy commercial property. My guess is none of you have any clue. You only know how to buy residential property. Is there not a coincidence that you know how to buy a residential property because you get free representation that teaches it to you? There's no one teaching you how to run NOI. There's no one teaching you how to operate a commercial business. There's no one teaching you about debt service coverage ratios and how financing works, how cap rates are incorporated into the value of a property. You don't get any of that in the commercial space. So you know what happens? You don't play in it. It becomes a good old boys club. When you take out the buyer agent representation, that's what you will get with residential real estate. Okay, that's why, Nature Boy, we're having this conversation. That I'm not like, yay, this is great. It's not great for anyone who's not experienced. If you already know how to buy commercial property, it's great that there's no buyer representation because there's less competition. You only compete with other rich people. If you had to compete with everyday people, it would be much harder to get the deals. Now let's look at other countries. Australia does it like this. They don't have buyer agents. They just have listing agents. Everyone in Australia, all of them that I've ever talked to, complain about the way real estate works there. It is incredibly difficult to buy a home. They do not have the low down payment options like what we have, and only wealthy people own their homes. Same in England, same in a lot of other countries. The buyers can't buy homes there because they don't know how the process works. The people who are experienced do. So it's just something, when I'm telling you guys, here's what to expect with the industry going forward. This is something that I think that everyone should be considering here. Was there something else I saw in here about the future? Zillow must be panicked. They make so much money selling buyer leads. Rosalie, I thought the same thing. You know what's going to happen? Zillow is going to turn on all the agents and cannibalize them. What I'm sure Zillow is eventually going to do is say, hey, we can't sell buyer leads anymore because buyer's agents aren't paying for these leads to get connected to somebody, because these people aren't going to say, hey, Zillow, connect me with an agent so I can pay for them. That's insane. So what's going to happen is Zillow is going to say, list your house with us. The whole cooperation between buyer's agents and listing agents is dead. It's destroyed. There is no cooperation anymore. It's every man for themselves. So if you want to sell your house and you want people on Zillow to see it, you got to list it directly with us. So instead of you picking the listing agent like me or Kyle or somebody that you know and that you trust negotiating for you, you're going to be forced to go to a platform like Zillow where all the eyeballs are going to be on it, and it's going to be run like an auction, right? That's bad for all of you listening to this, by the way. You're not going to like that when the only way to sell your house is through Zillow. And Zillow isn't going to be calling the individual buyers and trying to negotiate your price $50K higher like Kyle does. They're not going to be having meetings every single week where the David Green team people get together and say, here's how we can be better at helping our clients. They don't care at all. They're going to automate it and delegate it and use AI to save money. They're going to advertise how they're cheaper, but you're actually going to be getting less money when it comes to selling your house. And you're going to have less of an idea how much it's worth. And by the way, Zillow will have their iBuyer program come in and say, or if you don't want to go through this big scary thing, we'll just buy it from you right now for the low, low price of this. And how are you going to know if that's a good deal or not? Because you didn't put it in the MLS. You didn't get a lot of people looking at it. You didn't get offers coming in that could establish a baseline of what it's worth. This is why we're talking about it. It's not about the freaking realtors. It is about the way that homes are exchanged in this country has been getting harder and harder for the little guy to compete. You've got BlackRock walking in and other companies like them swooping up all the properties. Now you're taking the only advantage the little person has and you're taking that away and you're calling it justice.
By the way, if you guys are getting some value out of this or you're enjoying this conversation and the things that David is saying, do us a favor, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe. We're actually looking to do more and more live content on this real estate channel, David Green Real Estate. So hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and keep the comments coming too. We're appreciating this. Curious, David, do you want to, we didn't put up the ticker earlier, but would you be interested in taking a caller or two if they want to come in and talk about this? We're getting a lot of great comments.
Yeah, that'd be a great idea.
All right, so I'm gonna start a little ticker at the bottom here. If you text that number below, 833-777-0309, you want to come on and share your opinion on this matter. We'd love to hear from you guys, hear what you have to say. If you agree with some of the stuff David has to say, or you've got your own opinion, or you want to kind of take him to task, feel free to do that. We definitely invite you to come in and share. We've been talking a lot about the impacts on buyers that are out there and newer investors. But really, David, I'm kind of curious too. What are your thoughts on just like people who I saw a comment earlier that said, hey, I've got family, they're a real estate agent and they're really concerned about these things. They're afraid that they're not gonna be able to provide as much for their family. What do you say to the people who work in this industry who it is going to impact? What would you say to them? And I knew you were going to highlight the paperwork comment too.
Yeah. Danielle's comment here is not untrue, that you can pay someone to do the paperwork for you. Okay. The point is that only is beneficial for those of us that already understand how to do this. This is turning residential real estate into a good old boys club, where if you know how it works, you can survive and you have less competition. And if you don't know how it works, you aren't going to be able to compete in it. There are many things that you don't want anything to do with until you slowly figure it out. You do not want to walk into an MMA gym and challenge somebody to a fight. But if you know that you need to learn how to fight, you want the option of being able to pay somebody to teach you how to fight. And you want it to be somewhat affordable. If all the people that like knew how to fight decided they weren't going to teach you unless you were already a millionaire, you would just get the people that know how to fight walking around bullying all the people that don't. That's effectively what it looks like we're going to be heading into. Again, not in the next 6 months, but in the future. If you know how to do this real estate stuff, you've been listening to us, you're going to be good. You're going to be even better. This is going to be an advantage for me. If I want to go buy houses, I know exactly how to do it. I'll be able to buy it. You're going to see a lot of people say, F it, I'm just not even going to get into it. Or they'll say, you know what, I'm going to put my money in with 150 other people. We're all going to throw in $1,000 or something. And we're going to put 150 grand down on an $800,000 property, and we'll have fractionalized ownership. And the group will put in money, and a little chunk of that money from every person will go to pay the buyer's agent. So like real estate transactions may still change hands, but you don't get to be the sole owner of it anymore. And that dream is going to die. To the people who have family members, like you said, Kyle, who make their living this way, the days of being a mediocre agent, a lackluster agent, a less than completely dedicated agent, they're done. You either are the cream of the crop and you're a badass, or you will not make any money in this industry at all. Like the agents that were just nice and friendly and smelled good, and like they put on their little pantsuits and they posed on a park bench and they had something that said like, Veronica Real Estate, big or small, I sell them all. That's not going to cut it anymore. People are only going to pay if you have some information or knowledge that isn't common, or you offer some other value that isn't common, right? So like at the one brokerage, we'll probably be all right. Teams like ours that can walk you through a rehab and connect you with the people that are going to do some work or manage your property, like something like that, you can probably survive in this industry, and you might even make more money because you have less competition. But what you'll find is 80% of the business will concentrate in the same 20% of the agents that are badasses. And the other 80% of the agents are just going to end up in coffee shops or not working at all.
Yeah, speaking of real estate agent slogans, when I was in Tennessee, I saw one of the shopping carts at the grocery store. The lady's name, it was a real estate agent. Her tagline was, "I guarantee you my personal best." And I was thinking, well, what are all the agents doing then? Like, does that mean like nobody else is doing their personal best, but she'll do it? So that's kind of funny. I'm like, hopefully you'll get it from anybody. Yeah.
I mean, that's like saying, I guarantee I'll make you a sandwich. Like, well, what if your sandwiches suck? It's a silly argument to be made.
Yeah. That was their tagline. So yeah, impacts on buyers agents. What are some things like, do you think that this is also, we know it's gonna modify the industry, the way the transactions are done. A lot of people are saying, hey, this is the writing on the wall for real estate agents. They should see the change coming, right? It's when like the factory workers in Detroit knew that like you're not going to necessarily be able to work at that factory for long because the technology is changing, things are evolving, the economy is changing, the world is changing, right? So what do you say to people who, regardless if you're in the real estate industry or not, What can we sort of take away and learn from this, but also do to be proactive, right? Not only as just real estate agents or real estate investors or people who are in the industry, but what can we personally do with this kind of information?
The first thing, if you're an agent right now, I don't think you should be scared, paralyzed scared, but I think you should be scared into it's time to step up my game scared. Okay. Like if someone said, hey, David, you're getting paid $10 million to fight this person in an event in a year from now, that's scary. I'd probably start training tomorrow and put a plan in place to practice, to get ready for it, right? We're getting the warning. The way that it's been done, where you could be a buyer's agent and get by with a good personality and a strong work ethic, is going away. If you're a person who wanted to buy a house at some point and you've always wanted to be a homeowner, your chances of doing that were already incredibly hard. They just got harder. And you're being told this by people with a smile on their face, acting like they just did a good thing for the world. That's what's like making my blood boil about the whole thing. Is they're like, yeah, the seller shouldn't have to pay for the buyer's agent. Well, then who should? Not our problem. So the people that are putting all the money down and they're taking all the risk, that are buying, like most people don't put their house in good condition before they sell it to somebody else, right? You've seen deals, Kyle, that you got to back out of because things weren't disclosed.
Yep. Oh yeah.
Right? Most people just don't have money to pay for an agent, or if they do, they're not going to pay enough to get a good one. They're just going to be buying horse shit. They're going to see a lot more of that type of stuff. Like listing agents are going to become like commercial agents that are slimy and sneaky, and they put lipstick on a pig, and you don't find out about it until after you bought, and they're going to say, well, hey, we said buyer beware. Do your own thing. If you want to be a real estate professional, which might be a better phrase to start using than real estate agent, you need to be better at more than just knowing what's in a contract and knowing how to be friendly, right? You should understand what a roof is designed to do. Like when you meet with a home inspector, I know you do this, Kyle, you'll go out there and meet with the inspector and you'll ask them questions about how the electrical system works and the plumbing system. And you'll learn when you're there so that the next time you have a deal, you understand it a little bit better, right? I think having a good construction background would be great if you're a real estate professional. Maybe you stop calling yourself an agent and start calling yourself a professional and let your mind loosen from this idea that this is my job and say, well, here's the whole world. How do I fit within that whole world? And how do I provide value there? And then when the new professions pop up in that new world, you're prepared to take advantage of that.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And if you look at yourself more as a real estate professional, you can better serve clients, but you could potentially also create additional streams of revenue or streams of value where you could expand your business because now you have the ability to help people, assuming you're licensed in those areas. And I think that's a big part of it. What would you say to people, going back to your book that you just wrote, right? Pillars of Wealth. Some people may need to brace for impact in the sense that I think a lot of agents have already had to do that because the market has shifted. But what do you say to people right now financially, right? What should they be doing, focusing on in terms of their income, but also how they're spending money and investing it?
Yeah, they need to head over and buy that book first off. You can go to biggerpockets.com/pillars and you can find that book. It's got wisdom, at least what I believe is wisdom in it, regarding an overall understanding of how money works and how to attract more of it. If you're waiting until oftentimes the check engine light comes in on the car and we know we should take it to the shop, but we don't because it doesn't feel like anything's wrong. There's just an annoying little light that flashes and you ignore it. And then your car breaks down and you feel the pain and you're like, oh, I wish I would have done something. Don't wait until that happens in your life. If you're hearing these things that are concerning, consider them to be check engine lights and take some action right now. For everyone, that could just be looking at what you're spending money on and learning to spend less money. That's what I'm talking about. It's what we talk about in Spartan League. Can you become less of a consumer and more of an investor? The other thing that I would tell people with the second pillar, making more money, is fall in love with the process of becoming great. Stop with this thought of that's not my job. I'm the buyer's agent. I am a buyer's agent. I am a showing assistant. I am a listing agent. I am a whatever. You're a person who needs to provide value to people that want to buy real estate, which means you need to be whatever they need you to be, right? And by gaining the information, the knowledge, and the skills that people are going to need to be able to buy real estate, you'll represent them in whatever capacity becomes available to us. Like, I don't doubt my own ability to represent people if it changes from buyer's agents being paid to listing agents, or there's only listing agents, or maybe consulting becomes a thing and people have to pay for their own agents. And so they just pay me, and I just develop a consulting business where we take phone calls and we answer people's questions, or I create educational stuff that helps people know how to buy houses without an agent, right? Like, I know I'll be okay because I haven't focused on just what's my job and how do I do as little as possible.
Yeah, I love that. I think that is great. And if you guys have had a chance to read Pillars, drop it in the comments. What did you guys think of that book? Last but not least, David, I'm kind of curious what your thoughts are on real estate agents, or just people in general. We'll zoom it out, and all the innovation that we're seeing right now, right, in real estate, but also outside of real estate with AI and all this crazy stuff. By the way, have you heard of what Rewind is, David? It's like an app.
No.
Okay, this is crazy. So there's an app called Rewind that you can get, but they're actually creating this necklace that you can wear all the time that records everything you say and the people around you all day. And then it creates a summary and a transcription of what you did during that day. And then it creates a catalog over years, as long as you're wearing it and using it. And then AI can jump into that and tell you things and help like remind you of things that you talked about a week ago, 6 weeks ago, a year ago. And there's a lot of people that are going to start using this from like a business application standpoint, right? So imagine you wearing it in all your meetings that you're doing and all your meetups and everything you've ever talked about related to real estate. We now have a specific catalog to everything that David has talked about, seen with his eyes, and written in the real estate world, all in one giant catalog, right? And so we're starting to see things like this shift. My question for you, David, is like, what should people be thinking about when it comes to these kinds of technologies that are coming out? I'm seeing a lot of people like hating on them, but also a lot of people that are saying like, oh yeah, it's not going to shift or change anything.
Yeah, we're going to have to go deep here. You will have a contingency of people that says, this is amazing, I embrace change, this is going to be great, I don't have to remember anything anymore, technology will help me. They're all correct. You will have a contingent of people that says, I don't like this, people are going to be able to see everything I've ever said, it's going to end up in a database somewhere, I'm going to be able to be judged. They are also all correct. You're going to have a contingency of people that say, I don't think that I like the fact that we're always making things easier, and they are also correct, right? The best way that any of us can approach it is to get out of what you want to be true. Just to be frank, no one cares if you think everyone should be conservative or liberal. No one cares. Conservatives can get up there and they can rant about liberals, and liberals can get up there and rant about conservatives, and they don't change anyone's mind, and they never have. Just no one cares. It doesn't change their mind. A wiser thing is to say, if conservatives are in power, A is likely to happen. If liberals are in power, B is likely to happen. How do I position myself to thrive in either environment? Okay. Will we be a capitalistic country forever? Probably not the way we've known it. I'm not looking forward to that. Do I think it'll happen? Yeah. Are there ways to build wealth and live a successful life in socialism? Yes, there are. So instead of complaining about it, read about how socialism works and recognize that in a socialistic environment, the means of production are controlled by the government. So you probably want to be friends with the people that are in control of the government. Is that good? No. Am I happy about it? No. Please don't hear me saying I'm an advocate for that. But if it's going to happen, put yourself in the position to where you'll benefit from it happening. Okay. When it comes to what you're describing, what we're really talking about is just finding ways to make life easier for humans. I don't like to have to remember stuff. I don't like to have to be disciplined. I don't like to take notes in my phone or notes on a piece of paper, or even just train my brain to be stronger. So this technology is going to do the heavy lifting for me. Mm-hmm. Fair?
Yep.
Our brains work like our body does. If you stop lifting something with your arms because you have some exoskeleton that does it for you, what happens to your arms, Kyle?
They atrophy.
Yeah. In fact, it's now so easy to be a human, if you think about it, that for like thousands of years, our ancestors were really worried with burning too many calories. I don't want to work too hard because I could die, because finding food is difficult. We are now in the opposite position where we're like, how do I stop eating so much? And how do I go to a gym and artificially create difficulty for myself? Because that is the only way that my body, I have to try to find a way to exercise.
True.
It's kind of a crazy thought. If you went back 3,000 years and said in the future they're going to be like running on a treadmill, they're like, what are they chasing? No, they're not even going anywhere. They're running in a circle. Well, why would you do that?
Yeah.
It would make no sense to them, but to us, it makes all the sense in the world, right? Apps or technology like Rewind and the Neuralink that's going to be coming are all going to make it so that your brain doesn't have to work as hard, which means brains are going to atrophy. Okay. And if you have a nation full of people with puny arms, theoretically here, they're not able to defend themselves from as many threats, whether that's a bear or whether it's another country that's going to be attacking them, any kind of threat. The less you use your muscles, the weaker you become. Okay. Our brains are probably the most powerful muscle that we have. And we are slowly fascinated and obsessed with this. Let's figure out a way that we don't have to use it and call it progress. I don't know that that's great. Like, it just puts you in a position that you're a lot more vulnerable. So I wouldn't say that I'm afraid of the technology. I wouldn't say that I'm excited about the technology. I'm just looking at it and saying it's going to change things. How can you make sure you keep your brain strong if everybody else starts using Rewind? How, right? And here's what I would leave everyone with. We have started to confuse intelligence with memorization of facts. Right, Kyle, you've heard me vent about this a little bit. There's people on our team, there's people in my world, there's people I know that will recite what Jerome Powell said, that will recite memorize what the CPI data is, that will read the Wall Street Journal and then say what they read. And to everyone listening, they sound really smart. And what do we say? That person's really smart, but they're not really smart. They just memorize something that other smart people probably figured out. Okay. Real intelligence, from my perspective, is critical thinking. It is not memorizing information and being able to spit it out. It's being able to analyze opportunities and come up with a core fundamental understanding of that thing. If you're relying on stuff like Rewind or Neuralink or Google or ChatGPT, will it make your life easier? Yes. But will easy make you weaker? Yes. So let's just not forget that when we get so proud of ourselves because we have a thing to do the work for us, that's coming at a price, and that price is our own strength.
To take it one step further, would you say that real intelligence is the ability to be able to create or manipulate artificial intelligence in the way that it makes you better or more profitable or more wealthy? Which I guess is a form of critical thinking.
It starts that way, but what I think will happen with AI, like I can easily see a world, I was talking to Brandon Turner about this, where we're sitting here and we're like, do you think the Chicago Cubs are better or do you think the Chicago White Sox are better? And instead of us debating it and bringing up arguments and making cases and like you think, well, this guy has better pitching and these guys hit for average and these guys steal better. Now we have to ask ourselves the question of, well, is pitching worth more than stealing? Like, how is this weighted? That is working out the brain. That's why guys love talking about this stuff. It's like the same reason little kids love wrestling. It's like it's developing muscles, right? That's going to be replaced with, let's just ask ChatGPT. Are the Cubs better or the White Sox?
Yeah.
Okay. And then at a certain point, AI is going to become so good that we are going to trust it more than our own intuition. If ChatGPT says it, not the version we have right now, this is like WALL-E.
Down the road.
We're going to have a badass version of this stuff in the future.
Yeah.
That, like, basically, to our minds, might as well be magic. When it says this is the right answer, who should I vote for president, and it tells you, you're going to follow it. Okay. You will lose the ability to think critically because you will never use that muscle. And if you do think critically and you have a thought in your head, like, it doesn't really make sense why people do things that way. You just won't rely on it because the technology will tell you what you're supposed to think and you'll just trust it more. I think that the ability, like critical thinking, is going to atrophy along with a lot of other things. And you will find people sort of developing a hive mind because we're all getting our information from the same places.
Very interesting. We can do another talk. We've had a specific talk on AI in the past. Go back and check that out. But that's always a fun topic to talk about. So with that, just a reminder, you guys, hit the like button, subscribe to this if you're enjoying the content. We're looking to do more. And if there's specific things that you want to see, also drop that in the comments and let us know what you'd like to hear David talking about. David, anything you want to end on as we wrap up this evening? This is a really good conversation, a good talk.
Yeah, if you're frustrated that real estate is getting harder, you've been warned, at least by me, it was going to get harder, and you're being warned right now, it's going to continue to get harder. So you can either be in a bad mood and hate every single day because it's harder, or you can say, well, that means that I need to put more effort into learning how to be good at it, because the good old days where nobody knew about this and we had crazy inflation and we had increasing rents and we had a really strong economy, and all I had to do was put 3.5% down to buy a house, are slowly going to be going away. Now is the time where you need to be consuming more information, and you need to be getting it from people that you trust more than ever. So don't get discouraged, just buckle down and work harder.
Awesome. If you guys are looking to learn more about the Spartan League, you can go to spartanleague.com. That's where our group meets together, and we talk about this stuff very, very specifically, but we also talk about how we can put ourselves in the best position defensively, offensively, and investing. So you can go check out more information at spartanleague.com. Hope everybody has a great rest of their week. David, I hope you enjoy the sunshine and waves out in Maui, and enjoy your workout that you're going to have tonight too.
Thank you, guys. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and share this with other people so they can subscribe as well. We'll see you next week.
See you guys.